Good morning, girls. So for today's class, we'll be handling speech writing. In simple terms, speech writing is the method of conveying a message to the audience. It aims to convey ideas logically and it presents your thoughts to the audience in a very coherent manner. So speech writing is it usually happens during debates, interviews, public addressing. So wherein we address the public. So it is very important that we relate to them and we find a connection towards the public for them to understand our thoughts. And it's very important that a speech has to be persuasive because you are trying to convey the audience or convey the public to come on to the same page as you. So it's very important that your writing should be in a very persuasive manner. And the purpose of of speech writing is basically to convey the audience and bring them onto your side. So a speech is usually a kind of a monologue wherein one person talks and tries to convince the audience and bring them to your side. The language of speech writing is very important because it has to be very simple and comprehensive, because when you look at the public, you find different sorts of people. So it is very important that you connect with them through language. Usage of complex words or complicated vocabulary might confuse them, and they will lose interest and concentration after a while. So it's very important that you use very simple language. When you say speech writing, so like I said, it is meant to convey convince the audience, and so it is very important that you can use personal anecdotes, personal experiences in order to convey your message. That way, the audience will understand more than the monologue or the usual speech that you give on stage. To ensure that the audience feel the same way about you, you need to use pronouns like we and our. That way, you are including them into your experiences, or you are putting yourself in their position. So that way, the connection might improve between the audience and the speaker. So your speech has to have a certain emotional connect that would touch the audience's hearts and helps them to comprehend or understand what you're trying to say. So like any story, there is always a beginning, middle, and the end. So the speech also has an introduction, and there is the body and the conclusion. So what should be in the introduction is you need to greet the audience and you have to tell them about yourself. You have to introduce yourself and in what way are you eligible to stand there and give a speech to them. So your introduction should be in such a way that the audience would accept you, and it has to set the entire tone for the speech. So you have to introduce the speech. The main topic of what your speech is going to be will come under introduction. So using rhetoric questions, you give an opportunity for the audience to participate by asking them questions. That way you can kind of measure or assess their wavelength, and so that it can help you be on the same page. So your introduction should establish your credibility as a speaker. So like I said before, you need to make them understand how and why you are eligible to stand here and talk. So it's very important. Next comes the middle or the body of the speech. So the body of the speech will mainly contain the main chunk of the speech, and it should include arguments and reasons to make your point. So you cannot just say, this is what I think. You have to be very clear about why you think that way and what is your supportive statement, supportive arguments. That should come under the body of the speech. If there are plus and minuses or pros and cons or disadvantages and advantages to your speech, you should point them out correctly to the audience so that they would understand. So it's very important that your speech has a transparent outlook for the audience to connect with you. And you have to use solid facts and statistics. Apart from personal anecdotes and personal experience that you share with them, it is very important that you also have the proper fact and the statistical data to support your argument. So that will come under the body of the speech, the main chunk. And next comes the conclusion. Conclusion, this is again, you're summarizing your entire, the main idea of your speech, and you make them understand. You make sure that they have understood. So it's very important that you have completed the task that has been given to you, which is to convince the audience. So you have to reinforce your main idea, but do not repeat, repeat things again and again. So that's also important. And depending on the purpose of your speech, you need to conclude your speech with the proper message. Like, for example, you are either warning them, you're requesting them, you are asking them to, it's a call to action, call to order. Everything will come under the conclusion. And finally, you will end with a gratitude or the thank you speech. So these are the do's that needs to be followed when it comes to your speech writing. Talk slowly. So there is no, in some cases when people are asked to speak, they just want to go onto the stage and then blah, 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 blah. They do everything and they just want to get it done with. But that is not the case when it comes to a speech, because your main purpose is to convince the audience. So you need to pace your speech, pace your words correctly, give proper pauses in the right places for them to understand and digest what you're trying to say. So because, like I said, the people who are listening to your speech will have different intellectual abilities. So you need to connect with them in the right manner. And it is very important that you emphasize the key words. Emphasizing is different from repeating. So that also you need to know the difference between the two. Emphasizing is not repeating. And when you give a speech or when you're writing, writing is different, speaking is different, but what you're speaking is what you're going to write. So when you're giving a speech, it is very important that you practice, because without practicing, and especially when your speech contains a PPT or any other virtual devices that would help you in your presentation, then you will have to practice well. And next is your body language. So you need to stand in the right posture. Your hand movements should be correct. So everything comes under body language, and you need to maintain eye contact with the audience. You cannot look down or look up or look, at a particular point. You need to cover the entire audience. So it is very important that you maintain eye contact with the audience. And these are the don'ts that needs to be followed when it comes to speech writing. Do not read from the slides. Even though you have a PPT or any other virtual representation of your idea, please do not look at the screen and talk. You need to, like I said, you need to connect with the audience. For that, you need to maintain eye contact with the audience. And prepare separate notes for each slide, and do not stand and block the view for them. You need to give them space to read what's on the slide, and don't go too fast. When you go too fast, they do not get time to read the slide. So it's very important that you give them the space and time to digest or to understand what you're trying to say. And it's okay if you use quotations when it comes to your speech writing, but it is also very important that you need to acknowledge those quotations. Otherwise, that would be plagiarism. So be very careful when you use quotations. And these are the few examples of a speech, how a speech should be, how a speech is structured. So with this, I would conclude this class. I will just give an outlook of what I've said so far. So speech writing is basically a talk where you try to convince the audience and bring them on the same page. So you need to face the audience boldly, and you need to talk to them and relate with them. So that's important. So like I said, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. So it's very important that you structure your speech properly. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind when it comes to speech writing. Thank you, girls.